Hello everyone, Giltar here with a Transformers action figure review. This time we'll be looking at Generations Drift. Now Generations Drift here is a deluxe class Transformers toy, which means it'll run you anywhere between $10 to $15 US, depending where you're located in the world. Here in Canada, deluxe class figures start off at $15, unfortunately. Now, Drift was released just a few months ago in early summer. I don't have an exact date because Transformers toys don't have simultaneous nationwide releases. So, for example, in Canada, the Generations Wave 1 figures, which Drift is a part of, began showing up, I believe, on the West Coast before most anywhere else really in Canada. In a similar way, I believe the Generations toys showed up in Japan, not in Japan, but parts of Asia first before North America. So it's really difficult to really say when this figure is released aside from saying summer of 2010. Now, as far as the vehicle form goes, it's a really nice looking sporty type of design. The character name of Drift comes from the race sport of drifting. Now, I really like the color scheme of the vehicle, predominantly white with some red accents, blue accents as well. Now, the sort of, I guess, Japanese lettering, the kanji here, I believe, is for the word samurai, and the sort of wavy pattern here is, I guess, it emulates the rising sun motif on the Japanese flag. The character of Drift here, which originates from the IDW Transformers comics, is kind of a character that is, I guess, I don't know if it's a fan or just finds some connection to Japanese culture, but there we go. That's why you have these the Drift racing design and the sort of Japanese flag motif here. Now, as far as the plastics used, it's mainly ABS. I like the clear plastics for the headlights, windshield, door windows as well. Well, not as well, but there is some internal clear plastic components for some reason. I don't know why, and I'll show you that in a moment. But the rear windows are painted in, and that's because these actually become part of the leg design, and so it wouldn't be very feasible to have clear plastic there. Overall, a very nice looking vehicle form. Where it does lose some slight points is just the underside, where we can see some sort of out-of-place elements such as this large sword, forearms of the robot humanoid form, and the back of the head. You can also see the torso, pelvis, and thighs. However, they look fairly well disguised. The main offenders are really just, again, the forearms, head, and this sword. This sword that can be stored on the bottom of the vehicle. And I like the fact that the accessory can be stored when it's not being in use in the hands of the toy. I always like seeing accessories that can be utilized in some way and aren't sort of set aside when you're not using them. For anybody who's curious, apparently the vehicle form, the alt form, is a mix of the Nissan Silvia S15 and the Mitsubishi FTO or FT0. As somebody who isn't a car enthusiast or expert, that means nothing to me. However, a fellow Transformers fan and car enthusiast, like it's 1985, who I subscribe to, knows much more than me about cars, and I'm hoping he reviews Drift at some point in the near future and share his opinions on the vehicle design of Drift here, because I'm pretty sure that he has some really great insight about the car mode. So with respect to transformation, let's get into that. Before I do that, I'm going to elevate the camera so you guys can get a better look at it. The transformation design is really great. Straightforward and simple, but it does have some subtle elements of innovative design and engineering. Now, as far as the transformation goes, according to the packaging of the toy, it says it's a level 3 transformation out of a sort of a scale of 1 to 5, which means it's intermediate. It's not simple, but it's not difficult. It's somewhere in between. And I really do like how everything is so precise yet easy. Things peg into place well. The hinges work very well. For example, the leg transformation utilizes multiple hinge points for when things are unfolding. It just has a really nice sort of mechanical feel about the design. Same thing goes for the ankles. The arms have a similar function as well, where multiple hinges and joints are moving simultaneously as you're transforming the figure. And for a figure so bulky and large with respect to the legs and shoulders and whatnot, it has a really great range of articulation. It can actually hold both of its arms in front of its chest to hold the longer bladed sword here, which is an impressive feat. There's only one other Transformers toy that I know of that can do that, which is another Generations figure called Darkmount. Now, one interesting thing I want to point out about the design here is that for example, there are hinge and ball joints for both the hip components here and the shoulders. There's hinge joints at the torso and then ball joints further out that connect to the doors and connect to the shoulders. What that results in is some very great ranges of articulation, and the great thing about the ball joints here is that they're very secure, they're tight and firm, and they don't have any risk of popping off easily, at least not for my drift figure. Now the car door design here that becomes the sword sheaths for the short swords here, I really do like because it has some exposed bits here where you can actually see through the sheath, these sort of vertical, or not vertical, but sort of vents here that are on a diagonal alignment. You actually see the sword blade. I don't know if you can pick that up on the camera, but I really do like that touch. Now, one funny thing about the hip kibble is that we've seen it before in other Transformers figures. Masterpiece Starscream, for example, has similar hip kibble. Alternity Starscream and its repaints have similar kibble as well. Though on the Alternity figures, they're very notorious for being loose and touchy and finicky. They often fall off or pop off during transformation. And another interesting point is that the sheath or holder for the longsword in vehicle form can actually unfold in robot form. So it has a little articulated arm that you can use to angle the sword while it's sheathed on the back of the toy. So that, for example, if you wanted to move it out of the way of the legs, just angle it differently to make it, go in a different direction. So that's a really nice touch there, in my opinion. Let's remove one of these short swords. They're identical, these short swords. They resemble basically butterfly swords or butterfly knives. And they just basically peg into the hands. Now the swords are made of a flexible material. I don't mind it. I like the fact that they're flexible because it really means that they have a very low chance of breaking. There's no way that they'd snap under normal circumstances. Some people don't like it because it's a little more flimsy, but I don't have any problems with them. If they're out of shape, I just bend them back into place and they stick that way. And I've posed the figure with the swords out for a couple of days and I've had no problems with them warping under their own weight. So yeah. Some people complain about them. I don't think it's a bad thing. I mean, we have to keep in mind that these are toys designed for younger kids. And the materials are going to be used for these toys that are going to be more child-friendly, child-safe. And frankly, flexible material is more durable in that they're less prone to breaking or snapping than harder plastics like ABS. So yeah, overall, just a really great looking toy in my opinion. Great articulation, large feet to give it a really stable base in a variety of poses. I mean, we've got ball joints in the hips, swivel joints in the thighs, hinge knees, hinge ankles, hinge ball joints for the hip sheaths, double hinged elbows, ball joint for the wrists, hinge ball joints for the shoulders, rotational joint for the base of the neck, and then a hinge for the top of the neck where it meets the head, so that you can actually get the figure looking up fairly at a fairly steep angle, which is pretty rare for Transformers toys and for other toys as well. And again, due to the great articulation, especially the shoulders, it can actually hold its arms in front of its torso with no problem. For a variety of poses, it can even hold the long sword in both hands at the same time. So just really great articulation, which adds to the display potential. So yeah, just a really impressive figure. Again, it's a simple transforming figure, but it has some really great engineering touches during transformation that someone like myself, who has more experience with Transformers toys, these are things that I think I could appreciate, whereas some other people who aren't exposed to Transformers to the same degree might miss those things. But yeah, it's just a really great toy overall, and not in a bad way. I don't look at toys as bad things. Action figures, those are great, but toys are great as well, because toys are things that shouldn't be easily broken, that should be able to withstand a lot of play, and that's what drift can do. You can play around this toy with no worries about it breaking. Now, as far as negative points, I really don't have any. To be honest, again, the flexible sword problem, it's not a big deal to me. I can see why they're designed that way. The kibble in vehicle mode is very minimal and understandable, so I don't consider that a negative point. Nothing significant. Now, as far as robot design in humanoid form, a lot of people have cited that they don't like the bulkiness and chunkiness and sort of kibbly look. However, it's not a problem with the toy design. In fact, Guido Guidi, who is the character designer for Drift, Shane McCarthy is the person who created Drift in the IDW comics. If you look at the character art of Drift in the comics and then look at the toy of Drift here, you'll see multiple points of similarity. In fact, this toy is very, very accurate to the comic book artwork. And actually, I'll link a web page where you can see a comparison between Guido Guidi's character art for Drift and a photo of the toy here, and you're going to see how close the toy resembles the character art. And it's very rare that Transformers toys have such a high degree of likeness to the source material. So overall, just some really great design. Whatever cons or negatives that could be cited for the figure, I think are easily explained. They're not excused, but they're understandable. They're not arbitrary. They're not poor design choices. There's actually a very good reason for why certain things are done in certain ways for the figure. Overall, just great display potential, very posable. I think it has a good look, especially if you like Generation 1 or G1 style Transformers designs like I am. I'm a big G1 fan. You're going to recognize a lot of G1 inspired aesthetics and visual points in the figure. And if you're of that sort of preference, then you should really like Drift. Now, there are some people out there who don't like the Drift character rather than the toy, but they don't like the character for various reasons, namely because of the style of character it is. I won't go into that because I'm reviewing the toy and not the character itself, but if you are curious, just do a Google search for Drift, or look up any other Transformers Generations Drift toy reviews out there. The reviewers usually do touch upon the reasons behind some of the hatred that the Transformers fans have of this particular character. However, the toy itself is great for a $10 to $15 product that is widely available, that has very much great posing potential, good assortment of accessories, easy, straightforward transformation that can be appreciated by both new Transformers collectors and old Transformers collectors. This has a little bit of everything for everyone, and in some cases, some of these points, there's a lot of things to offer to everyone. So I definitely recommend the Drift toy here, my favorite of the Wave 1 Generations figures. If you have any interest in the figure simply by looking at the design from photos or videos, if you have any interest at all, do yourself a favor, invest, $5, $10, $15, how much, however many dollars it costs or whatever currency you use to buy you this toy. I'm sure you're going to enjoy it on some level. And to be honest, to me it was a surprise. I didn't expect to like this toy as much as I do, and I can't wait for the Generations Blur figure, which is a retool and repaint of the Generations Drift figure. The difference, I believe, the main difference is that it's a different color scheme, a different head sculpt. Instead of swords, Generations Blur will come with guns, a sniper rifle and a pair of shotguns or pistols, and also in vehicle form it does not have the spoiler that Drift does in vehicle form. But aside from that, I'm looking forward to that design, and that's actually, I believe, based on IDW Blur rather than the traditional G1 Blur or any other incarnation of Blur. So that's my review. I hope you guys enjoyed it and got something out of it. As usual, thank you very much for watching, and I'll see you guys at the next video.